Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of Teamwork a Better Way. I'm Christian Napier, joined by my amazing co-host as always, Spencer Horn. Spencer, how are you?
I am great, Christian. I love that we always get to have this conversation almost weekly. I mean, not always, but mostly weekly. Those of you who listen, maybe you're hoping that we would be more regular.
Well, it's hard because we all have day jobs, right?
Yeah,
And you are an extremely busy person. You've got speaking engagements all over the country, all over the world. You were just telling me you're getting on a plane tomorrow, heading to the great city of Minneapolis. Super
that's
excited to
right.
hear that.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to hear that and to go there. And I think the next I have is Detroit, then Panama City, then Amsterdam, then Bali. That's just in
Wow.
September.
That is a crazy September. Super exciting though.
Actually,
What?
that's the first week, including the first week in October. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, nitpick.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Yeah, we've been. I've actually been on the road a fair bit, which is
I
unusual for my job.
know.
But I was in your old stomping grounds of Las Vegas, and then last week I was in Huntington Beach. It was absolutely beautiful. We at a conference, and right on the, our hotel was right across the street, I should say, from Huntington Beach, and
What's the name of the hotel?
absolutely beautiful. It was what was it?
Is it
I
right
think
by
it
the
was
pier?
Hyatt Regency. It's down
Oh,
maybe it's a 20-minute walk
to the pier.
south of the pier. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, but it was wonderful.
Yeah,
No
it's so
complaints.
beautiful. It's so beautiful. And I'm sure all your adoring fans were asking all about your insights and or were you there to learn?
I was there to learn, so I didn't actually have a presentation. It was one of the few conferences where I've gone just as an attendee, not speaking. I think folks have heard enough from me. They're like, "Hey, let's get some fresh meat." uh, but no, it was fantastic. It was great. So
Yeah.
no
Well,
complaints there.
we're monologuing a little bit, right, Christian? Should we tell
We
our
are,
listeners why?
but well because we're saving the best for last. We're waiting for our amazing guests to step into the green room and then come out and join us.
That's right. And basically he's calling in from Dubai. We were just on the call with him and he had to hop into his office and so maybe he's having an issue. So, we want to have everyone hear how amazing our guest is today because this is going to be a great discussion that we're looking forward to. But in the meantime, what did you learn at this conference? I mean, what's one takeaway you have? I'm putting you on the spot. Or is it
Well, just
secret
to provide some
governmental,
context.
black ops that you can't share?
No, no, no. I think to provide some context, this conference was primarily comprised of state CIOs or chief AI officers. Um, there are a few other folks attending, but that's primarily the audience, right? And I think one of the big questions that folks have in public sector right now is how do we bridge the gap between the way government operates and the way AI providers, frontier model providers, or hyperscalers primarily operate, because
Yeah.
they're very, very different cycles. So there's a lot of conversation going on around that. How do you manage budgets in the era of tokenization, in tokenomics, right?
Interesting.
Where costs are not predictable. New models are introduced, old models are
Yeah.
deprecated on a very frequent basis. Those have very different costs. Everybody's talking about agentic AI. Oh, we have agents. But there was a study from Stanford showing that the cost of compute for agents, or the amount of token that agents use, is up to 1,000 times more than if an AI is just having a regular conversation with a person. If an AI is
Are
spinning
you
off a lot
kidding?
of
Well, it's
agents.
supposed to save us money, but hey,
No.
we have our guest on now, so
Woohoo!
let me see if I can get him in our fun layout here. Let me hold on here, see if I can figure this out. Video source, and there we go.
Can
There
you
he
hear me?
is.
There he
Yes, we
is.
can hear you.
So I'm on my computer and I'm like, I checked on Zoom, my video and
You're
audio
Sahil.
works,
You're
but on
live.
this
Sahil,
eCam,
you're live, so the whole world can hear you right now. This is perfect.
is it okay?
It's totally
Yep.
perfect. Yeah, this is great. We're your
Okay, let me
camera
just set
looks.
up my camera in a different position so that
Yeah, let's
let's
just get
see.
started. Christian, why don't you go ahead and um, let's do our intro, and then we'll introduce you, Sahil. Sorry, we just went without you.
Spencer, why don't you do the honors of introducing our guest who's joining us all the way from Dubai in the UAE? Super honored and excited to have Sahil join us. So go ahead, Spencer.
Yeah, so Saahil Mehta is a CEO, an entrepreneur with business spanning 2 continents, and he is the best-selling author of the book Break Free. He's a keynote speaker, a success coach who has worked with hundreds of businesses and business owners over 25 countries, and he facilitates for EO, which is the entrepreneur organization, YPO, young entrepreneurs and operators, and he has been mentored by Marshall Goldsmith, and is part of the MG 100. Pretty rare and special to be part of that small group. And his book is called Break Free, as I said, and it's about moving from fear of judgment and self sabotage to what he calls conscious leadership. He's also a mountaineer, which I love, and he's summited Elbrus and Kilimanjaro, and he's used that experience to talk about pacing, trust, and knowing when to turn back, all of which apply directly to how we build teams. Welcome, Sahil. So good to have you.
Such a pleasure to be here.
Well, I sometimes when we go live, we have challenges, and but you know what, we do our best to adapt, and I just wanted to start off with a question. You know, Sahil, you described decades of people pleasing and burnout while chasing society's definition of success. You know, what did that look like day to day? And what was the moment you realized it just wasn't working anymore?
It was one of those moments where you get to a point you thought you've reached success because your 20-year-old self, if I said that if I have 7-figure net worth, family, a nice house, a rock star car, maybe a Porsche or something, which is what I was driving, a nice watch, you're debt free, you're able to travel the world, and you've got your own company, and things are going pretty well. So check, 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 but not feeling excited. And first I said to myself, maybe are you just being ungrateful because you have this amazing life that people would trade for in a heartbeat, and you're feeling unfulfilled, like what's going on? And as I started to dig a little deeper, I realized that the definition of success that I had been following all this time, I followed it to the T. It was a system I followed to the T. Get great grades in school, you get to a good college. Get great grades at college, you're going to get a great job. My first job, I was an investment banker. This is now 20 plus years ago, and I was earning $80,000 plus in my first year. That's a lot of money. So I followed the system, but what I didn't realize was that the system wasn't mine. And here's the thing, we all are different. Christian, Spencer, the audience, we all have a unique fingerprint. And yet, the definition of success that I was chasing was pretty much similar to a whole bunch of other people. I mean, in fact, millions and millions who were chasing the same. And what I realized was it wasn't mine. It's something that I inherited from family, society, from media, social media, the educational system, etc. And the more I started to be aware and think about it, I realized, well, if that's not what success means to you, then why don't you go about and start defining it for yourself? Now, it's easier said than done. I'd been following this system for decades, and all of a sudden, I've got this blank sheet of paper, and I got to figure out what steps to take. So that kind of, that was the seed that was planted. And then in 2016, so this is when I'm 36 years old, I went on a retreat with some fellow entrepreneurs. And during this retreat, because you talk about the people pleasing, part of that came from the fear of of judgment, of what others are going to think about me. So I'm on this retreat, and we agreed to 2 words: no judgment. I mean, wow, I felt this huge weight lifted off my shoulders. I didn't have to pretend to be someone I'm not. And using the mountain analogies, I just let go of this big rock in my backpack that I'd been carrying for so long. Now I'm lighter. I'm feeling great. I'm having a great time. And I can only describe the 4 days of that retreat as euphoric. So as I come back home, I want to note down all these amazing experiences I've had with my wife. So I asked the air hostess on the plane, can I get a pen and paper? So I start writing away. I start, jotting down all these memories and these epiphanies, etc. And all of a sudden, I feel these trickles of water going down my face. And now I'm thinking, like, what's going on? Because it's not like you to cry. But I said, you know what? I've got these other entrepreneurs on my left and on my right. No judgment. It doesn't matter. Just let it flow. Just process. And as I did that, I realized that if this is the guy that I am, when I don't have any fear of judgment, where life is so beautiful, then who is this guy that I'm going back to? That's not me. And okay, I understand we live in a world that has a lot of judgment. And I said to myself, even if I'm half the man that I was over the last 4 days, that's still way better off than where I am right now. And that kind of allowed me to begin this journey of, what am I carrying in my backpack? Is it serving me as I climb my metaphorical mountains and start to discover what success really means to me? And so you asked me, what did my life look like back then? Even though I ate well, I exercised well, I was constantly bloated. I wasn't sleeping very well and would wake up with a heavy head and a blocked nose. I used to have, and this was the worst part, I used to have these energy dips. And when I say energy dip, in some cases it was so bad, I would just fall asleep. Now, I've fallen asleep on my desk. I've fallen asleep in restaurants. I've fallen asleep on the sofa when I've had friends over. I've fallen asleep in a nightclub, even with all that sound. And the worst was once I fell asleep behind the wheel. And I covered this in my TED talk when I talk about how people pleasing almost cost me my life. But I guess it wasn't my time to go, because my wife and I, even though the car was completely smashed from all directions, and thank God no one was hurt, we didn't hit any other car, but I went off the road into the rocks and trees, we walked out with minor bruising. But what I realized was, and it's like the frog in boiling water, the temperature was increasing ever so much year by year by year. So I didn't really notice the big impact. And I kept telling myself, oh, just accept yourself for who you are and how you feel. But the reality is, if something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. And so that's when I really start, that and the trip, all these things coming together, I realized that I need to start discovering who I am and what success means to me. Because if I can live a life of success by my own definition, I move towards fulfillment, which is essentially moving away from regret. And that's what's going to give me inner peace. And that's how I'll be able to function at a very, very, very high level.
This is fascinating. There's a lot to unpack there. I appreciate you giving us the context. Uh, One thing that I was thinking about uh, as I was kind of reading up in preparation for our conversation today, and you use the mountain analogy, and you talk about decluttering and getting stuff out of your backpack, and I want to get into all of that in a bit. But one of the things that you talk about is, you can spend a lot of time and energy climbing the wrong mountains, right?
Mm.
And so it sounds to me like you had spent your life doing that, thinking that every time I get to the summit of this, that I will find peace, I will be satisfied, I will be happy, but it doesn't happen, right? And so you got to a
Exactly.
point where you're like, okay, I've been summiting the wrong mountains for a long time, but how do you go about finding the right one? For you, it's like, okay, I went to this retreat 4 days. It helped me kind of change my mindset, reevaluate everything. Is that what people need to do? What's the process that folks, or is it individual to, every specific to every individual? What's the process that you got to go through, not just to be aware that you're climbing the wrong ones, because your body and your mind were telling you with physical exhaustion, you're sick, like, okay, I'm spending a lot of energy doing the wrong things. But how do you find the right things? How do you get to that place, not just that you're aware of what's going wrong, but finding the path to the mountains that you really want to summit, that are going to bring you that lasting fulfillment and that happiness?
Hold on, Saahil. I'm going to put you on your own camera here. Just 1 second. Uh-oh.
Nope,
Maybe
I'm being
that
big.
doesn't work. Maybe we'll just keep it like this. All right, go ahead. I wanted to highlight you, but we're adapting here live.
I love the question, Christian, and I'm going to just add one more comment to it before I answer. You mentioned, how do you recognize when things are not going great? Well, I want to say one thing. Sometimes things are going great, or should I say good? But there's a difference also between good and great. And if you keep making decisions that lead to a good life, it still may be a life that you will wake up one day and regret. So by following what I'm about to share, you can start making decisions that push you towards a great life, one that takes you away from regret. So the good news is, I spent a lot of time on this, and I had to develop a framework, which, I'm going to be honest, it's not like I'm not Einstein and I came up with a concept that's original. I took lots of these learnings from all these great masters out there, these great mentors and coaches that I've had, and these amazing folks who share online. And what I did was, using that and my mountain experience, I put something which I felt, with my engineering mindset, something that's easy to understand and logical. So let me share how that goes. And by the way, the good news is, this entire process and framework is going to be in my upcoming book that comes out early next year, titled The Zero Regret Entrepreneur, which I'm co-authoring with Marshall Goldsmith. So here's how it works. In the mountaineering world, we have something that is known as the 7 summits. That's the tallest mountain on every continent. And it's said that once you conquer these 7 mountains, you've conquered the world. So I started thinking to myself, what about my inner 7 summits? What if I was able to conquer my inner world? And that's where it all began. So I take people through this process, and I'll highlight it fairly quickly, is I give a list of different areas of life just to get you started, because it's maybe hard to think about what's important for you. But if you say that there's something else that's important for you that's not on the list, by all means, you can adapt it, because ultimately it's your definition of success, and we're not trying to push you in any direction.
It could be 5 or 8 or 10 summits.
Right. Well, in this case, I still push for 7. And I'll tell you why I push for 7. Sometimes people are like, why not 3 or 4? I said, well, listen, if it's 3, everyone's going to pick health, wealth, relationships. It's too obvious.
Yeah.
By pushing you to pick 7, you start to think about the other areas of your life that are important for you. So once they've identified the 7 different areas of their life that ultimately make up success, because if you succeed in one area and unhappy in the others, you're still going to be miserable. You could have all the health in the world and nothing else. life sucks. You could have all the money in the world and nothing else, life sucks. You get my point. So you define the 7, and then you ask yourself, fine, I'm juggling these 7 on a daily basis, right? It's a balancing act. Everyone talks about this balance in life. So you're constantly juggling these 7 balls. Now, the thing is, some of these balls are made of crystal. You drop them, smashes. The others are made of rubber. It can bounce back. So in my case, health is a crystal ball. Once I lose it, I might be on medication for life, or I've broken something, or I have some autoimmune disease, whatever. It's very difficult to reverse. And no matter how much I do, I'll never be the same again. Money, on the other hand, for me is a rubber ball. I could lose everything. And we've seen people, as famous as Elon Musk, who've almost gone bankrupt a couple of times, and they've bounced back. And how? So I look at that as a rubber ball. Now, each person gets to define for themselves which is a crystal ball and rubber ball. So now you've got the 7 things that are most important to you. You decide which ones are crystal and rubber, and then you'll put them in order of priority. Because in some cases, certain things take precedent. Like, for example, in my case, family will always take precedent over fun and recreation. So we put all those in order. Now, the beauty of having these 7 defined in the order of priority and knowing which are crystal and rubber balls, every decision you make, you can ask yourself, what is the net effect on these 7 mountains? Because the previous version of me, with my blinders on, I would see growth in company or more money. And I'm like, let's go. But when I said yes to that, what did I say no to? And that wasn't clear for me before. Now I see a bigger picture because I've zoomed out. So your decision making becomes a lot more simple. It gives you a lot more clarity. And of course, there are times when you have to make sacrifices. But I always tell my coaching clients that I've been working with for years and years, when it's repeated, it's no longer a sacrifice, because they always said, yes, just when I get here, I'm going to give more attention to my family or my health. And then a couple of months later, something else shows up. A few months after that, another important thing shows up, to the point where I say, here's the mirror. Just be honest with yourself. Don't tell me that health and family is important for you and your biggest priority when your decisions and actions are stating otherwise. So it's important to be aware and reflect upon this.
Where does that come from, Saahil? This, I'll wait till I get to this mountain, or even you said you had to drop this judgment. Where did all these things that you put in your backpack came from that causes us to say, I have to focus here? Where does this people pleasing, if you will, start? Where, and how does that impact everybody else? I mean, family, the team, when you're just, it's almost like you're describing we're programmed and we become automatic in this type of thinking.
I love it. And what my coach asks me one day, what she asked me one day in one of my coaching sessions, because I was with something I was struggling with, and I can't remember, but I remember what she asked me because it was so powerful. She said, Saahil, what belief system of yours is no longer serving you? And what belief system do you now need to replace it with so it can serve you?
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example. Growing up and you hear these quotes, maybe your parents tell you, maybe your sports coach tells you, or your teacher, never give up. Never give up. We've all heard never give up. And it's encouraging. And like everything, it makes sense to a certain point, after which it can potentially cause more damage than good. It's holding on to that business that you really should have quit or stopped years ago, but you kept telling yourself, never give up. Failure is not an option. But then what is it costing you? Another simple example, you're running the marathon and you're out of the 26.2 miles, you're now at mile 24 and you can't walk. You can't even forget run. You can't walk. You're crawling. And you're like, I never give up. If I have to crawl, I'll get there. But then how much of your limbs or your body are you damaging? And will that ever be repaired? Now, at that point, do give up, because your health is very important. And just by hanging on to this belief system, which at this point is not serving you, it can actually destroy you. So the key then becomes is, how do you start recognizing these belief systems? And one of the ways is by asking yourself, what is a belief system of mine that is no longer serving me? And what do I need to replace it with so it can take me to the next level?
Okay, this is really, really fascinating. I like this analogy of the 7 summits. And one of the questions that I have, Saahil, when you mention this, is I don't think that there are very many people in the history of the world that have actually summited the 7 highest peaks on the 7 continents, right? It's a minuscule number. I don't know what the number is, 500, maybe 1,000, I don't know, but it's probably a very, very small number. So there could be a lot of people who are listening to this podcast who say, okay, well, that sounds fine, but is it really achievable for me? Because, you know, it's rare. It's a very rare feat for someone to summit, 7 highest peaks in 7 different continents. And to do that, people have to have resources. They've got to have time, and they, not only have to have the physical capacity, but it also takes teamwork to do those kind of things. You can't do it all by yourself. You got to have funding, and you got to have people around you that can support you. And so for the person who is feeling a bit like burned out, maybe even isolated or alone, thinking about, wow, summiting 7 peaks, even though they're kind of the inner peaks in my soul, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I've got the confidence to embark on this journey to, to self-actualization, to realizing my potential and finding my inner joy and happiness. So what would you say to people who on the surface are like, yeah, that sounds really cool, and then they quickly sink into, yeah, but not for me, because I'm not a successful entrepreneur. I haven't I don't have this comfortable bank account that'll allow me to go on a vision quest to go do something. I'm just trying to survive day to day. What do you say to people who may be lacking some confidence, maybe have a little bit of fear and trepidation about embarking on this journey because they just feel like they're going to fail again?
Well, I want to start by saying, and to the people that are listening, is I hear you and I feel you, because I've been there many a times. There's so many times where I've asked myself, is it worth it? Can I do it? Do I have the time, the bandwidth? I mean, whatever doubt or fear that's been in my mind, many of them have crossed, including, and you mentioned my book, Break Free, which is here, A Guide to Decluttering Your Life. In school, I got an A in every subject except English. It was the only subject where I got a C. And I told myself, you're not a writer. What if people ridicule and mock your book? What if you get bad reviews? What if? So there's so many reasons not to do something. I had many. I gave you a couple, but if you want, I can go on and on and on about why I should not have written that book. So then I asked myself, what is the one reason you do need to write the book? And I said, if it can just change one person's life and make it better, where their life was filled with more joy, more inner peace, more fulfillment as a result of me writing the book, even if hundreds of thousands say it's rubbish, it's okay, because I made a difference in one person's life. Now, what I didn't realize, gentlemen, is when I wrote the book, the first person it actually changed was me. So to all the people that are listening, there's hundreds, I'm sure thousands of reasons why something may not work, why it's not a good idea. But what is that one reason that you should do it. Because I believe in you. And when I think of writing a book, I'm like, oh my God, it sounds like a lot. I think of writing a chapter, oh my goodness, it's still a lot. You tell me write one paragraph, I can do that. And so for the folks, I mean, the success definition that people can do, and in the show notes, I can share a link where they can go and go through the process of defining success for themselves. That might take you half an hour to an hour. That's the time you need to invest. And after that, you may not conquer all 7, but this is your North Star. It gives you direction. Because the last thing you want to do is wake up when you're 80 or 90 or 100, and nowadays people are saying you're going to live till 120, and look back at your life and go, I wish I did, and you're filled with regret. I mean, The 5 Regrets of the Dying, a great book that I constantly look at, and the number one regret is I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself than the life others expected of me. When I know that's the number one regret of the dying, I tell myself, I don't want to be that person. So what steps can I take not to be there? And so again, once you have your definition, you have your North Star. And when you have your North Star that gives you direction, all you have to do each day is, what is one step that I can take today? Not 5 steps, not 10, not 100. It doesn't have to be big. Just one step that takes me closer to one of the 7 summits that I've highlighted. And if you just keep doing that day after day after day, you eventually make it pretty high up the mountain.
That's exactly how I climb mountains. I have never climbed Kilimanjaro or Elbrus, but I just find that if I look up at the summit, it's almost insurmountable. I mean, I just feel like, oh, I'm never going to make it. So I say, okay, let me go 100 yards, and let me go another 100 yards, and then after a while, I look back and I go, wow, I've come a long way. But it's Christian and I while we were waiting for you, we were just talking about, I just finished writing my book, Saahil. And
congratulations.
Thank you. And it has taken, this is not an exaggeration, over a decade. And it's so interesting. And, you talk about in your book, this fear of judgment and self-sabotage is, really the impact that it has on us. Who's going to listen to me? And my mother was an English teacher, and I used to get all kinds of feedback. She would have been apoplectic if I got a C in English, and I did anyway. But I got plenty of other bad grades. I didn't get my first 4.0 till my master's degree. But it was again this self-judgment. Who is going to be interested in what I have to say? Who am I? I've never climbed any amazing mountain except here on the Wasatch Front. I just had all these doubts, and I am sending this to people, asking them to evaluate it, Saahil, nervous that they're going to think, oh my gosh, what a fraud, how stupid. And then I get a couple of people responding back like, this is great, this is amazing. And I'm like, really? I'm surprised, because of this belief system that so many of us have, that we self-sabotage. And so, where does this fear of judgment hide in people that even look confident and are putting on this facade of confidence from on the outside? And where does that come from?
Well, again, I can't speak for everyone, but I can certainly share my own story, because I know that really well.
Yeah.
Where did people pleasing come from for me personally? It came from, if you please your parents, and I'm now talking when you're a young child, you might get certain things that you ask for. You might get that candy at the candy store. You might get to go watch this, the movie at the cinema, etc., etc. So you're like, oh, this works. I please someone and I get things that I want in return. And then after that, as I grew a little older, preteen, or even before that, my parents are telling me, especially in the community that I grew up in, always don't do anything that would make your parents walk around with their heads down in shame. Always serve others, treat your guests like they're royalty. So there's a lot of these belief systems or things that I was told as a young child that I just latched onto. And yes, maybe it served me at a certain point in my life. And yes, it probably serves me even today. But here's the thing, and please don't get me wrong, people pleasing is lovely. It's nice to make someone else happy. Why wouldn't you want to put a smile on someone else's face? But not at the expense.
Right, at the expense of what? What are you saying no to, as you said before, right?
Yes, someone was calling me, apologies. Not at the expense where it causes you a lot of pain.
Yeah.
Again and again and again. Do not say yes when you really want to say no. Because if you keep doing that, at some point, and in my case, I started losing confidence. I started questioning my self-worth, but I was making others happy. And what I realized was people started to fall in love with the inauthentic version of me. And then I had to keep it up, which is a lot of effort because that's not who I am in my native state. I'm constantly wearing this mask and being someone that I'm not, which is a lot of hard work.
I think that this is really important. This actually speaks to the title of our podcast today, which is Scale Without Sacrifice, right? And why burnout isn't the price of success. Can you tie that title to what you just said? Because I think there's a strong correlation. Because you're sacrificing
Absolutely.
who you really are. Yeah.
Absolutely. And look, of course, when I climb any mountain, physical or metaphorical, I am making sacrifices. But those sacrifices are choices that I'm happy with, I'm content with, I'm okay with. It's the sacrifices that I'm making, whether it's through people pleasing or the fear of judgment or whatever other belief systems that I was holding on to that's causing pain. That's the sacrifice I don't want to make because that's taking me away from who I truly am. And if I'm constantly living a life that's not me, then how can I be confident with the real version of me? That's not a sacrifice I'm willing to make. In fact, I would go as far as saying I would much rather someone hate the real version of me than love the version of me that is not real.
So, Saahil, one of the questions that's popped in my head is, as we talk about these concepts, they feel very personal, specific to the individual. But when it comes to teamwork, building teams, can the same apply to teams? Can teams identify their 7 summits? Can they come to an agreement on a shared vision and prioritize and declutter? Or is this primarily an individual pursuit?
So the way that I've framed it till now, it's definitely more focused on the individual. However, if I shift to the team, it's all about ensuring that we're climbing the same mountain. Because if one is climbing Kilimanjaro, the other one Everest, the other one Elbrus, the other one, Tropicalqui, there's so many mountains out there. But we all agree that we're climbing a mountain. If we're climbing different mountains, how are we going to get great results? And I found with my work with these amazing business owners over the years that in so many cases, people just assume that the team members know which mountain they're climbing, but it's not always the case. So it's very important to highlight and to ensure that is the team climbing the same mountain? Because if you are, then you can support one another. you're following the same direction, and you'll certainly get results a lot faster. Otherwise, there's a lot of conflict, right? Butting of heads. And it's not because I'm better than you or you're better than me. It's because we're not climbing the same mountain. And if I can kind of tie that into a personal story, again, when I was evolving at a very fast pace, I wasn't keeping my wife up to date with what's going on, because the person that I was and the person I was becoming was so different. At some point, she says, "Who are you? Like, I don't recognize you anymore." And that was starting to cause a lot of problems in our marriage. And this kind of happens in the workspace as well. I'm just using a personal analogy that people can relate to. And then we started having silly arguments. I mean, I would say, "This shirt that I'm wearing is blue," and she'd go, "No, it's light blue." And it's such a silly argument. It was argue for the sake of arguing, to the point where once I said, "Listen, like I want this relationship to work. Do you? Because I can't do this fighting and quabbling nonstop." And she said yes. Finally, we agreed on something. Once we agreed on that summit, then it was, okay, what can we do together? How do we co-create so that we can climb this mountain together? And so the same applies in teams in the office. Agree on what the summit is. It has to be crystal clear for every single member on that team. And then it's not "I say you do," because that's the leader of the past, as we know from Peter Drucker, one of the greatest out there. The leader of the future knows how to ask. So it's, how do we collectively climb this mountain so that we all succeed? Now you start to get all these wonderful ideas from all the team members, regardless of their level. And once you've got buy-in, because it's no longer "I said you do," but we all agreed, now you start climbing. And oh boy, everyone is in sync. There might be a few hiccups along the way, but overall people are in sync and climbing the same mountain and walking together. And they have their milestones along the way clearly labeled. That's how teamwork leads to success.
You talk about this idea of knowing when to turn back, and as you apply that to teams, if you're pushing towards a goal, when do you stop, and then how do you message that to the team to share that we're not quitting? Because you talked about the marathon. My dad was a marathon runner, and I think he ran 7 marathons, which I think is pretty amazing. And he ran one months after we had a bicycle accident. He crashed his bike and broke 3 ribs. So he's running just a few months after that, and he got to mile 26 and was in tremendous pain. I was 15 years old, and I'm like, "Dad, you can't quit. You're almost done." And he finished. He finished, and I don't know if his pushing so hard, to be this marathon runner or healthy, contributed to him having a stroke at 59. But maybe. But when do you say no, and how do you message that? And so, because there are a lot of people on that team that have this "don't quit" mentality.
I love your question. Here's the thing. In the heat of the moment, we're all human beings, right? So we have emotion. And in the heat of the moment, there's a lot of emotion involved. And when people are very emotional, it's very difficult to make the right decision, because people will have very different views. I mean, we're all different people, so of course we're going to have different perspectives. So that's why, and I'm going to use a mountain analogy again, when we are climbing any high altitude mountain where we're going above 20,000 feet, I'm telling you, when you have lack of oxygen, lack of food, lack of sleep, you're not always going to make the right decision. So what we do before we start climbing the mountain, so before any major project, before any major initiative in the company, discuss the what ifs. We already know the probability. I mean, we're not going to discuss what if the dinosaurs come back because the probability is so low, it doesn't make sense. But there are things that where the probability is significant. There might be a 15%, 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever it is, of something happening. Bring it onto the table, have the discussion before you start. If this happens, what decision are we going to make? So that when it does happen, if it happens, the decision's already been made. There is no discussion. Because again, when I'm at 18,000 feet, approaching the 20,000 feet, and something happens, someone's going to say, and by the way, this happened in one of the worst accidents ever on Mount Everest. Someone said, this is the third time I'm climbing. I didn't make the first two. We're almost there. Please, we have to go. And the lead climbers, the guides who are so experienced, said, okay. That okay resulted in one of the worst accidents ever because suddenly, and this happens on the mountains, weather's unpredictable in the afternoon. The weather suddenly changed, strong winds came about, a lot of mountaineers got stuck, and unfortunately, many of those who got stuck passed away. That's because they did not follow the golden rule, which was at this time, wherever you are, or at this, depending on where you are in the time, you turn around and you go down because going up is optional. Coming down is mandatory. So if you enter any project, any initiative, anything that the company is doing, have the what if discussions. And once those situations occur, there's nothing to discuss because the decision has already been made.
I like that, and you can do that in forms of agreements. And I don't think organizations or teams make agreements in advance. And you do that when everyone is excited and on board. I think that's a brilliant suggestion.
Yeah, I love that too. Another question that the analogy brings to my mind is oftentimes, I'm no mountaineer, so I'm not speaking with any kind of authority or experience here. You watch a documentary like Free Solo or something like this, or watch a few of those kind of things, you start to learn things like, hey, well, sometimes there are different routes, up to the summit, so you can go this way or you can go that way, and so it may not necessarily be, and I might be stretching this analogy a little bit too far, you tell me, but it might be, hey, uh, the goal is worthy, but tactically, the way that we're approaching it may not be optimal. And maybe we need to reassess and go back down and choose different routing. And so one of the questions I have for you is, as a leader, how do you discern between, we're attempting to summit the wrong mountain, or no, we are trying to summit the right mountain, but we're taking the wrong route. We need to kind of rethink our route and try this other approach that will hopefully lead us to the outcome that we're looking for. As a leader, how do you kind of make that kind of judgment call?
Love it. So I met this army captain, and I still remember this conversation with him vividly. And he said, Sahil, don't use a ladder to go up. Build scaffolding instead. So that for whatever reason, if the path that you're on, you find an obstacle that you weren't aware about, you can then shuffle to the left or to the right and continue on up because you have scaffolding rather than a ladder. And that really opened my mind because you don't know what you don't know. Surprises can happen. Laws can change. Situations can change. So many things can evolve. But if you only have one path, you risk everything on that one path. But if you've built scaffolding, you always have the ability to shift.
Sometimes though, I got to tell you, we got my friend and I, we summited a mountain, and we were the coming down is the hard part, right? We were going down a different way, but we had run out of water, and our plan was to get into the valley where the water was, and we could not find the path down. And it's a big cirque, and so I mean I'm pretty experienced, and so I just surveyed and I go, okay, we're going to run out of water, and then the sun's going to go down, and we're going to be dehydrated, and we're going to be in big trouble. So Christian, I just found a path that had the least distance to fall. We found boulders and trees that if we did fall, it wouldn't be more than 20 feet. And we made it. He was cursing me so bad. We were, 3-pointing it backwards, climbing down backwards on cliffs with full backpacks. And we had one path down, and it sucked, but we got there and we survived. Sometimes it's just stupid luck, right? Oh boy. Well, speaking of, I'm not going to say that. Just luck. We were lucky today to have a great guest, Christian, and we're running out of time. It went fast. I have so much more to ask. Should we get to the lightning round?
Yeah, let's do it. I can't believe it's already, I don't know what time it is in Dubai, but it's 10:53 in the morning here. I'm shocked. I thought we've been talking about 30 minutes. I can't believe that the time has flown so quickly.
So, all right. So here's the story, Saahil. I've got 10 questions, 1-word answers, or super, just like one sentence. All right. We're going to go as fast as we can. None of these are rehearsed. You just gotta go with it. All right. Ready?
Let's go.
Summit or base camp? Where does the real leadership happen?
Base camp.
1 word for what most leaders are actually chasing.
Inner peace.
Fill in the blank. Burnout is really a sign of?
Lack of awareness.
Harder to learn, saying no or hearing no?
Definitely saying no.
Kilimanjaro or Elbrus, which taught you more?
Kilimanjaro.
The worst piece of advice successful people get?
You'll be happy when?
Stress less or grow faster? If you could only fix one first.
Stress less.
One habit you dropped that your team noticed immediately.
Ooh, wow. It wasn't immediately, but I noticed it after a while, and it was people pleasing.
Best thing Marshall Goldsmith has said to you in 5 words or fewer.
Every breath is a new me.
Finish this sentence. Great teamwork happens when?
You're climbing the same mountain.
All right, there you go. You heard it here.
Oh, wow. Well, this hour has just flown by. It's been fantastic, Saahil. We appreciate you joining us. If people want to get the book, Break Free, folks, go out and get it. If they want to learn more about how you can help them individually or help their organizations, what's the best way for folks to reach out and connect with you, Saahil?
The best place to connect with me is on LinkedIn. It's very simple. It's just my name, Saahil Mehta, so they can find me very easily. And if people are ready to embark on their journey of discovering what success means to them, they can just visit my website, www.sahilmehta.com/success audit. And just in case you're having troubles with spelling my name, I'll be sending the link over, so it'll be in the show notes.
Yeah, I have several of those, including a link to your book already from your assistant. We'll put in the show notes for sure.
Yeah, we'll definitely get those in the show notes, and we'll ask our listeners and viewers to check out those show notes and go connect with Saahil on LinkedIn or his website. Get the book. Spencer, you got a book coming out too, as you mentioned. That's super exciting. If people want to connect with you, is LinkedIn the place to be?
It is the LinkedIn, and I know that's where they need to find you as well, right?
Yep. Just look for Christian Napier on LinkedIn. Happy to connect with folks. Wow. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation, Saahil. It makes me want to go climb a mountain, which is kind of weird for me, but that's awesome. Listeners and viewers, we're grateful for
Can
you
I leave the
too.
audience with one final nugget?
Yes.
So it's a very short story. There's a sailor and he goes to the captain and he says, Captain, Captain, can I please get my pay? And the captain says, yeah, sure, come tomorrow. So that night, the sailor goes to bed all excited, thinking about how he's going to spend his money. And the next day, he goes back to the captain and says, Captain, Captain, please can I get my pay? And the captain looks at him and says, hey, didn't I tell you come tomorrow? So folks, tomorrow never comes. You've picked up many golden nuggets. Don't try to do everything. Just pick one, but implement it today.
Do it today. That's a great way to cap this conversation off. So Saahil, once again, thank you. We really appreciate it. And we are so grateful to our listeners and viewers as well. Thank you for being such a supportive community. We really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe to our podcast. We'll catch you again soon.